Hey guys, welcome back to DIY Dudes. I'm Drew, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do California knockdown ceiling. So to give you a bit of a backstory, I'm in a 900 square foot, 3-bedroom house, and I want to do California knockdown ceiling throughout. I went ahead and I got a quote from a professional contractor, which came in at about $1,000, and I thought to myself, man, that is a ton of money. I could probably buy the big compressor, the texture application gun, all the miscellaneous odds and ends and mud I need, and still have a ton of money left over in my pocket after the job's done. So I went ahead, bought the tools, and now I'm going to go ahead and do the work and show you guys how to do it. All right, guys, so these are the tools you need to do the California knockdown ceiling. This is an 8-gallon air compressor that I purchased specifically for this job. It's about double the size of my normal air compressor that I use for just trim and whatever else. And the reason I got the 8-gallon is because it's going to supply a consistent flow of air and make sure to get the material through the gun and actually onto the ceiling. If you have too small of an air compressor, it's not going to get a nice even flow and you're not going to get a consistent application. The next thing I purchased for this job is the texture application gun. So I got this guy off Amazon, and honestly, out of the box, I'm very happy with the results. It's nice, powder coated stainless steel. The valves are all brass. The O-rings are all nice and thick and well oiled. And just overall, it seems very solid and built like a rock. The trigger pull is nice and tight, and I think it's going to work great. The hopper that it came with is just medium size. I think it's more than sufficient for what I'm going to do here. Overall, I'm very happy with the gun, how it looks out of the box. We'll see how it performs during the actual work. I'll let you guys know. The next thing for knocking down the texture, you're going to need I'm using a drywall knife. There's a few different tools you can use. Drywall knife is probably the most common that a lot of you guys have. This is a 16-inch. You're going to want something nice and wide so you get a good thick area and you're not going to have to go back and do a lot of passes. So like I said, I'm using the 16-inch tape knife. The mud I'm using to apply the texture is just general all-purpose mud. We'll thin this down as required throughout, but it's just nothing special, just general all-purpose mud. Nothing crazy there. And then the air compressor line, you're going to want something long enough that you can get around your whole work area without having to move the compressor, because it's a lot holding the gun, moving the compressor. You want a line long enough that you're not having to stop applying the texture to go back and readjust your line. And then finally, just a bucket of clean water and a sponge.
Before you get started, you're going to want to protect your windows, doors, and walls with plastic. Just secure this using regular painter's tape. In this case, I didn't actually protect the walls with plastic, only because this house is under renovation. I thought that the effort required to completely wrap the house in plastic was going to be more than the effort required to do a little bit of cleanup afterwards. When you're thinning down the mix, make sure to add small amounts of water. The goal is to have the consistency of pancake batter. If your mix does end up being too runny, there's lots of fine adjustments you can do to the mix to make sure you get the application just right. If your mix is too thin, you can add a little bit more mud to thicken it up, or conversely, if it's too thick, you can add a little bit more water to thin it down. Before you apply any texture to the ceiling, you're definitely going to want to make sure you test out the application on a scrap piece of wood or drywall. There's several adjustments you can make on the gun and the compressor. You can increase or decrease the amount of air coming from the compressor in order to increase or decrease the amount of mud that actually gets shot onto the wall. Additionally, there's adjustments on the gun where you can increase or decrease the amount of material that flows through the gun and out onto the wall. Make sure you play around with all of these adjustments to get your pattern and thickness just right. It's better to test it out on the scrap piece of wood rather than having to go through and redo a big section on the ceiling. When testing out your knockdown, you're definitely going to want to inspect your tools. If your drywall knife has any sort of curves or dings in it, that's going to show up in your texture and it's not going to look good. Take this opportunity to swap out your tools and use something a little more flat. When applying the texture to the ceiling, there's several different methods you can use. You can use sweeping line motions or a circular pattern. Either way works fine as long as you have a consistent application throughout the entire room. Play around and figure out what works best for you. Before you knock down the drywall compound, you're going to want to wait between 10 and 20 minutes. This amount of time is highly variable and depends on the temperature and humidity in the room, as well as how thick or thin your drywall compound was. Keep an eye on the drywall compound, and as it starts to appear more dull, that's when you know it's about time to start knocking it down. When knocking down the texture, you're going to want to make sure you use a random pattern. If you use a consistent pattern from left to right, for example, it's going to appear as if the drywall compound is flowing from one side to the other. It's not a good look, and a random pattern is a lot more appealing to the eye.
All right guys, so we just wrapped up doing the California Knockdown ceiling, and overall I'm very happy with the results. The gun I purchased off Amazon turned out awesome, the quality was superb, and the texture application of the ceiling, once I got it dialed in, worked perfectly. I also took a little bit of a risk on not applying plastic to all the walls, and I think I'm pretty happy with the results. There was a little bit of cleanup, but overall, not too bad. And like I said guys, the job turned out great. So hopefully you guys learned a thing or two. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and see you next time.